One of the most major storm systems of 2025 so far is on the way into the upcoming week, and this video has the full overview. From wind to rain to severe weather to snow, most of the country is going to be impacted, and all of the latest details are right here, so stick around. Here is the latest custom overview graphic I've made for the winter storm anticipated as we go from March 3rd through March 6th of the upcoming week. The origin zone is going to be as you come out of parts of California, Oregon, and the West, stretching through the Mountain West in particular, where we could get some pretty hefty snow totals in some of those highest elevations heading on to Monday into Tuesday, and then eventually we will see low pressure tracking out of the Central Plains and up into the Midwest, where on the backside of that low, on the colder side of this system, we will have that potential for moderate to maybe even briefly heavy snow, possibly some blizzard conditions, and I'll talk more on that in just a minute. That will impact some parts of Nebraska, the Dakotas, into Minnesota, Iowa, and Wisconsin in particular. Eventually, some of the zones in the Midwest and Ohio Valley that start out Tuesday into Wednesday seeing rain and thunderstorms could crash over by Wednesday night into Thursday to snow even there. But back down further to the south, this is going to be an all rain and storm event. Same will go, especially as you get closer to the coast there in the New England region. Where we'll have the best chance for severe storms is going to be as you come out of Oklahoma, Kansas, and then back down to Texas, and then into points eastbound through the mid-south, the lower to mid-Mississippi Valley. Even the southeast U.S. having some level of a risk for those strong storms. Let's go ahead and get into the timing for this system using the latest run of the European model. Without further ado, I want to go ahead and play the future radar out, starting as we go out of our Saturday evening when I'm recording this and into our Sunday, March 2nd of 2025. Most of the central and eastern U.S. is expected to be dry around this time as a recent cold front will have just pushed off the east coast. But temperatures are already going to be getting closer to average or even warmer than average behind that front into parts of the Central Plains. And as that occurs, we're actually going to see what I'll call a weak appetizer system to what's going to come deeper into the upcoming week, impacting parts of the far eastern parts of Colorado and New Mexico, and then especially with some rainfall stretching on out here into Kansas, western Oklahoma, and the northern parts of Texas. As this builds and starts expanding into zones a little bit further east, late Sunday and into our Sunday night, we could even see the potential for isolated tornadoes and severe weather in some parts of Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas, particularly around that Red River region. So be on the lookout for that. Some of this activity will translate even over to Arkansas and Louisiana by Monday morning in the form of some rain showers. But the main low pressure system that I'm talking about in this video is going to begin exiting parts of the Rockies and pushing right on out into the verge of moving into the high plains and the central plains of the U.S. by the time we get towards Monday from 7, 8 to 9 to 10 p.m. Exiting Colorado, moving into western Kansas. While there won't be much rain in the plains around this time, a very strong south to north wind flow will be going on and pulling up at least some very isolated light showers and a lot of moisture. Back into the Rockies, meanwhile, we'll see all of the moisture that has moved in from the west coast in places like California, moving in from the northwest to the southeast with some snowfall and even a lower elevation rainfall in some of the slightly warmer spots there in places like the Four Corners back all the way on up to Idaho and Montana. And then the storm becomes even more dynamic as we go overnight, Monday night and into Tuesday. And look at what happens as that occurs. By the time we get towards 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in the morning, thunderstorms will likely be picking up and going strong out of central Kansas, central Oklahoma, and Texas. And it's likely going to be this action as it pushes east throughout the day, where we see this line and possibly multiple other clusters and supercells out ahead of it, leading to a severe weather outbreak as you get closer to the Mississippi River Valley and into the mid-south. I'll talk more about that in just a minute. But here's what's also going to be going on Tuesday morning. Wind and rain likely on up here as you get into the Midwest and Great Lakes region, including parts of Minnesota, into Iowa, over to parts of Wisconsin and Michigan. As if that isn't enough, the storm will also be more dynamic with this snow band that's likely to wrap around on its tail end. This will continue pushing east throughout the day through the north central plains. It will start Tuesday morning out of parts of northeast Colorado and likely into parts of Nebraska and South Dakota, assuming the storm ends up looking like this, which again, confidence is continuing to rise that it will. And look at the shape that this storm takes on by the time we get to the end of our Tuesday. A very classic comma-shaped low-pressure system with a very strong piece of jet stream energy fueling it, likely moving out of Kansas and into Missouri as the day goes on, with the strong cold front that extends down here into parts of eastern Oklahoma and eastern Texas through the day, likely pushing along that round of heavy showers and thunderstorms that could lead to significant severe weather, especially in this zone that I'm circling by the time we get towards the middle to the back half of the day Tuesday. Missouri, far southern Illinois, back down from southwest Kentucky and then into points as you go down the Mississippi River through Arkansas, western Tennessee, Mississippi, Louisiana, looking to be that prime environment where we could see multiple tornadoes, some of which could be strong, damaging winds, hail, all going to be possible threats. Meanwhile, we'll be watching cold rain around that time, possibly some gusty wind into Iowa and northern Illinois. Eventually, we'll see the transition line of snow pushing into eastern Nebraska as we get into our Tuesday evening. Eastern parts of South Dakota eventually set to really pick up as we go out of Tuesday night and into our Wednesday morning into some parts of the upper Midwest. Here goes that storm deepening even more into the overnight hours of our Tuesday night into Wednesday, where we will have to at least watch some of these storms and probably the gusty winds that will accompany any of this rain. Even if you don't have severe thunderstorms, very breezy conditions expected to continue from the Ohio Valley back down through the mid-south and southeast states as this line of rain, wind, and thunderstorms pushes east overnight. What about back here on the other side of the low? Look at the snow. It's expected to really pick up as we get into Iowa, far northeastern Kansas, northwest Missouri, and then all the way up to Minnesota and Wisconsin, where with gusty winds from the north that could be upwards of 40 miles per hour, this could easily turn into blizzard conditions, and those whiteout conditions will only continue to push east through the day Wednesday, eventually impacting more parts of central Wisconsin as the day goes on. What about the storm lines further east? I think we're going to have a couple of different areas we're going to have to watch thunderstorms as we go deeper into the day Wednesday. One with this storm line and the associated cold front moving east of the Appalachians. I think as the day goes on, we'll start to see additional thunderstorms possibly popping up closer to the east coast. But anywhere from Alabama, Georgia, and Florida all the way up the east coast and possibly even into the southern parts of New England, rain, thunderstorms, and wind will be a big concern as this cold front moves on through late Wednesday. We'll also possibly have a little tail end front coming around here that's going to really bring in that cold air on its backside into places like Iowa, Missouri, and Illinois. And right out ahead of that, that could be where we briefly see even some severe weather into the Ohio Valley. I wouldn't rule out an isolated tornado there as we get towards the back half of the day Wednesday. And then it looks like into the Great Lakes and Ohio Valley, while the Northeast wraps up with some of its rainfall east of that front into our Thursday. We'll also be watching some of the snowfall wrapping back around the very tail end of the storm. And then as Thursday goes on, probably going to be wrapping up any of our snowfall accumulations, any of our blizzard conditions in most zones, just still windy for a lot of the East Coast, even as we go out of Thursday and into Friday. Now that we've talked about the overview for this storm system, I want to go ahead and talk about some of the possible wind impacts you could see in terms of those wind gusts, and it all begins as we go through our Monday, March 3rd for some zones, as the plains will begin to see some 20 to 30 mile per hour wind gusts picking up from the south, but especially on the backside of the low pressure system that will be moving out into the front range. That's where Monday will bring the highest wind impacts from Nevada into southern Utah, southern Colorado, and into parts of Arizona and New Mexico. As you exit those greenish shades and turn into more of those yellowish and orangish shades, you can see using the key at the bottom of the screen, wind gusts upwards of 45 to 55 miles per hour being possible in some zones. That's definitely going to increase fire danger as well as cause the risk for some isolated power outages. So be on the lookout for those gusts, and eventually we're going to start to see more of these gusts expanding into other zones. A look at this, by the time we go through Tuesday morning, winds relax in some areas, but then Tuesday afternoon is when the storm from this point on is really going to have a lot of wind on both ends. Low pressure sitting around eastern Kansas and parts of Nebraska, and places like Omaha seeing the low pressure right overhead, meaning a little wind probably around Tuesday at 1 to 2 p.m. But the south winds out ahead of and around our thunderstorm line here in the lower to mid-Mississippi Valley, those will be cranking in at least 30 to 40 miles per hour for those gusts. And the wind back through the high plains coming in from the north to the south back behind this system, even moving in from the west in places like Dallas into our Tuesday afternoon, gusts upwards of 40, 50, even possibly 55 miles per hour here. Again, a very breezy day in all of those zones where you see those colors getting brighter. What about as we go through late Tuesday into Tuesday night and into Wednesday? Winds continuing probably with any thunderstorms and around and ahead of them here into parts of the Ohio Valley in the east. We're from Indiana back down to Alabama and then through the parts of the Appalachians. We could see many 30-plus mile per hour gusts by the time we get towards Wednesday, 1 to 2 a.m. We'll also be watching that wind starting to move through parts of the north central plains because as that moves into the Midwest into the day Wednesday, any of that wraparound snowfall that we see here in this zone that I'm circling, looking to have wind gusts upwards of 35 to 45 miles per hour, that will easily create whiteout blizzard conditions up into the upper Midwest. Look at all this wind cranking around the system, though, all the way from Arkansas and Missouri over to the mid-Atlantic, looking at wind gusts upwards of 30 to 40 miles per hour being predicted for Wednesday afternoon. That includes the Carolinas, Georgia, Alabama as well. Then it doesn't even end there. More gusts through the Great Lakes and Ohio Valley with any snow we see into our Thursday morning. And a lot of the east will continue to blow up with more wind gusts as the back end of this low pressure moves through with more northwest to southeast wind flow, even as we get into the day Thursday. That's all I have to say in terms of the overview for this storm system. As we get into Sunday, into Monday, I'm intending to do videos both of those days breaking down more of the specific details that I'll know about the severe weather timing, as well as the blizzard and winter weather timing, even just the general rain timing for this storm system. Now we're going to talk about some of the temperature contrasts coming around that storm system system time frame into the upcoming week as well. Let's start here in the near term, though, into our Sunday, March 2nd, 2025. You can see that cold front that pushed off the East Coast, leaving some 30s and 40s behind, even all the way down into the central Appalachians for highs. More like teens and 20s up into the interior Northeast, as temperatures will be well below average, with some breezy conditions possible, at least as you get closer to the coast in some parts of the day on our Sunday there. What about up into the high plains? Very warm here, and you can see how this could help in supporting some severe weather there with that brief round we'll see in Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. 60s and 70s getting as far north there as places like Wyoming, where that little box there with that 64-degree reading there into the east central part of the state indicates that could be a record warm high, and it's going to get even warmer in some of these zones as we get out of Sunday and into Monday. Look at this warmth continuing to pump north. We've got 80s down here into parts of central Texas, including places like Abilene by the time we get into our Monday afternoon. More south winds allowing for mid to upper 50s and even low to mid 60s, even all the way as far to the north as getting on the doorstep there of southern Minnesota and far southern North Dakota. Right out ahead of our storm system. Out of Monday into Tuesday, that's when you can really see the contrast this system's going to bring, though, with low pressure starting to stretch on up here into a place like Nebraska. That's where you see your warmth line end, temperatures peaking around 45 to 55 all around this line that I'm drawing. Down to the south of there, as you get closer to that zone where the severe weather is going to be likely a very big warm pull of at least upper 60s to low to mid 70s. I think this isn't extremely supportive of a major severe weather outbreak, but we could definitely see multiple strong tornadoes. You need to be preparing for the worst, of course, as you get down there towards the middle to the lower Mississippi Valley and all surrounding zones that have that potential for severe weather. Back here on the backside of the low, only peaking in the mid 30s for highs out of Montana and Wyoming into the Dakotas. Then as we get out of Tuesday into Wednesday, there you go, you can see that pushing east. Low pressure now stationed around the Great Lakes through a lot of the day Wednesday on average. Colder flow only allowing for 30s through a lot of the day, even for the peak highs in the upper Midwest, as those blizzard conditions will be possible. Still in the 60s and 70s with that strong push. And some of those 60-degree readings in Ohio and Indiana, those are the suspicious ones where I think we could be even a little bit warmer briefly, and we could see that secondary line of storms later in the day Wednesday that could have that isolated tornado potential. Be on the lookout for that. By Thursday, a lot of the eastern U.S. and the Midwest dried out and cooling down with those gusty winds continuing. That's all I have to say in this video. If you have any comments and questions, leave them down below. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Check out the Weatherball Model Maps link down in the description. That's all I got to say. See you next time.